A random man tried to rope my girlfriend at a party, and I defended her, but the cops arrested me for assaulting him. About a year ago, my girlfriend Madison and I attended a party, and a few hours into it, we snuck off into an empty closet room to make out. In the middle of our makeout, I went to the bathroom, and on my way back, I heard her scream. I rushed in and saw some dude trying to violate her while she was pushing him off. I socked the guy from behind and wailed on him hard, and I only stopped after he was out cold. Madison and I left the party, and I thought that was that. But the next day, police showed up to my door and put me in handcuffs, telling me I was being charged with aggravated assault. I tried my best to explain what had actually happened, but they wouldn't listen. They took me away, and once I was in jail, I called Madison and explained the situation. Long story short, I was bailed out by her, and the legal process dragged on for months. In the end, the court ruled based on the testimonies of the guy's friends who were also there at the party, who painted me as the aggressor. Madison explaining what had happened and how she was violated meant nothing to them apparently. In the end, I was sentenced to 7 months in jail. In jail, the days were monotonous. The same walls, the same routines. It felt like time had become a loop. I tried to read books to pass the time, but most of the books were beat up and missing pages. My mind then turned to how Madison would view me after this, and the life I could provide her. I hoped that I could find a job after this, and that Madison would wait for me. I felt hopeless until the first visit happened. When I walked into the visitation room, I felt a bit lighter than usual. Seeing Madison there felt like seeing the first flowers of spring after a really long, cold winter. I was almost surprised to see her there. I had tried not to get my hopes up about her visiting so I wouldn't be let down if she couldn't come. Me and Madison talked about the small things first, like the book she was reading and a movie she had seen last week, but she seemed a bit off. I noticed her talking rather quickly and wasn't looking me in the eye. It felt like her body was here physically, but her mind was elsewhere. I asked her if everything was okay, and she said she's been feeling overwhelmed lately. When I asked her about what exactly, she replied that it's been a lot handling everything on her own. I reassured her that after I got out, I would do everything in my power to take the load off of her completely, but she told me that I just didn't understand. I questioned her about what she meant, but she refused to give me an answer. She visited me regularly throughout the 7 months of me being there, but every single time she wouldn't ever tell me why she was so overwhelmed, as apparently it wasn't just because I was in jail. Her visits are what kept me going every day in jail. She was my only connection to the outside world, and then it was the day I would be released. The morning sun shined a little brighter that day, and the air was crisp. I stood at the gates of the facility and threw my backpack over my shoulder. As the gate swung open, I saw Madison pulling up, and I ran to the car. She looked beautiful as ever. When I got to the car, I pulled her out and hugged her and kissed her repeatedly. She laughed and kissed me back. I told her how much I missed her, and she returned the love. We got in the car and headed home, and that's when I asked her if I could come over to her mom's house for something to eat. I barely ate in jail because that food was bland and made my insides feel terrible. I was beyond excited to get something to eat from her mom's home, especially since I never got home-cooked meals at home. I grew up around family members that barely tolerated me, and when I moved out, I never looked back. Madison said, "Why don't we just stop by a fast food place on the way home?" I had not worked in over 7 months, and I didn't have much savings before I left for jail. I'd hate to have to make her come pick me up from jail and pay for my food. Also, her mom's cornbread was the best in town. I told her I was craving a home-cooked meal, and she said she'd cook for me. It felt like she was avoiding the question completely. I asked her if everything was all right, and she told me that everything was fine. "Then why can't we visit your mom's house?" I asked her. She took a deep breath and told me that we needed to talk about something.